We're still waiting for our chair to arrive, but I think we'll go ahead and get started. It's a little bit after 7. So I'd like to call this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order of March 22nd, 2023. And staff, will you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Hudson. Present. Commissioner Moman. Present. Commissioner Waddy.
Here.
And Vice Chair McLeod.
Here.
And
I'll go ahead with the land acknowledgement. Excuse me. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lijon. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. And with that, I will pass the meeting over to Chair Pilch. And we're on ex parte communications.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for beginning the meeting. And I thought I had left myself plenty of time, and I guess that was not the case, so apologies for my tardiness. Item 3, ex parte communications. This is for any commissioner who has had ex parte communications to disclose them at this point. Any commissioners have any to disclose? And I see shaking heads, and I have none to disclose as well. So we'll move on to the consent calendar. Consent calendar items are usually moved with one motion unless a member of the commission or public wants to pull an item for discussion. And I'll start by saying that I would like to pull item 4.2 for discussion. Any other commissioners want to pull an item for discussion?
I'd like to pull item 4.3, the remodel at 926 Cornell Avenue.
Okay, 4.2 and 4.3. All right. And not the minutes. Would any member of the public like to have an item pulled from the consent calendar? Anyone in the audience or anyone online?
so if anyone online would like to pull an item on the consent calendar, please use the raise your hand function in Zoom. At the moment, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So we'll bring it back to the commission, and we'll start with item 4.2.
Shouldn't we move the minutes first? Take a vote to move the minutes.
We can do that if you want.
Just clear out, finish the consent calendar, and then hear the items that are being pulled off.
Oh, sure. If you, well, 4.2 and 4.3 are part of the consent calendar.
Right, but shouldn't we, if those are pulled off, those are being pulled off the consent calendar is what you requested, right? The folks are requesting to pull those off the consent calendar to hear those items?
Yeah. So then, okay, I've done it different ways in the past where we discuss the items that are pulled off and we move the consent calendar all as one. But if you'd like to move the minutes separately, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense to me. If we're going to hear those items, let's hear those items. It didn't sound like it was just a clarifying question, so.
Sure. If you want to go ahead and make a motion.
Sure, yeah, I'll make a motion to move item 4-1, the minutes from February 22nd.
I will second.
Okay. And Commissioner, I forgot your last name. Hudson, Commissioner Hudson.
I'd like to move that we pull item 4.3 from the consent calendar as well.
Okay, great. And now currently we're voting on whether or not to approve item 4.1, which is the minutes.
Aye.
Aye, okay. And Commissioner McLeod?
I'll vote yes.
And Commissioner Moman?
Yes.
Commissioner Waddy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So we pass the minutes. On to item 4.2, the permit for the wine retail and tasting shop. And does the applicant happen to be here?
Yes,
okay,
they're
great.
here.
I really just have some clarifying questions. And I don't have the plans in front of me, but I can remember that my questions were mostly about, was the intention that So you're going to be leasing the, okay, let me back up. Thank you for coming to the podium. As I remember it, at one time, the frontage along Solano Avenue was all one business. Although there are doors, there's 3 separate doors there. So is your intention to lease retail space and see who shows up and then kind of divvy up the space depending on who shows up to, who wants particular spaces? Or do you intend to definitely divide up each space and lease each space separately? Or can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. We will definitely be separating each space. So the 2, we don't know what's going in on either side of the 901 San Pablo. We will only be leasing the 901, and then those 2 other spaces on either side will be something completely different.
We'll be leasing the corner.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, you'll, okay, I really should have.
Maybe I can help clarify. These folks are the tenants of the space. They're not the owners of the property.
Oh, okay. So what we're approving is the use permit for the wine retail and tasting shop, which is the one retail space at 91 San Pablo.
Right.
Okay, all right. I got confused because we got plans for the entire property, and I wasn't sure if what we actually were talking about. So now that's clear to me, and that space is a separate retail space and does not currently connect with the other retail spaces? Okay.
There's no door that connects inside.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then that's, I just had clarifying questions then. Anyone else with questions or for the applicants? Okay, well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thanks,
for
guys.
coming. And on to item 9.3 then.
Well, can we approve this one?
Yeah, we should
just
take a
approve
vote.
this one?
Yeah, I mean, I thought if we were pulling it off consent, we would like hear the item, get a presentation on it, but if this was just a clarifying question. I guess it was a little confusing on what we were doing here, but we clearly need to take an action on 4.2.
I think we should vote on this particular item and move it forward.
Absolutely, we can do that. I guess the council does it a different way, so that's why I'm used to that way. And we can do it however we want.
Well, I think we should take them one at a time.
We can set the
and as we
rules.
hear
So
them, then,
do I have a motion?
Motion to approve item 4-2 for the wine retail and tasting shop at 901 San Pablo.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And Commissioner Wadi?
Aye.
Commissioner Moman? Yes. Commissioner McLeod?
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson?
Aye.
And I vote yes as well, so that is approved.
Yeah, and everyone's really excited to see something happening in
Yes.
that corner.
I'll
Really.
be your first client, customer.
Yes, I second and third those sentiments. Yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah,
All right, now,
you're done. You can.
yeah.
You can leave.
Yeah, you're all set.
You're free to go.
Yeah, no story polls, no nothing.
No.
Okay, great. All right, so now there's a couple of commissioners who pulled 4.3. Did you want any presentation from staff, or do you want to just?
Well,
address your
yeah, if we
concerns?
could maybe at least pull up mostly the elevations I'm concerned about. Not so much the plan, but
Unfortunately, the architect emailed just an hour or two ago, that he is unavailable to attend due to a family emergency, and he was on an airplane. So I'll do my best to explain it, but I don't really know the design intent, unfortunately.
are the owners here? Or, no? Or online, maybe? Or attending remotely?
Check. Let me make sure I've got the names right. Yes, the owners are available online.
Okay.
So you'd like me to bring up the,
Yeah, if we could look
Plan
at the plan set, and for me in particular, page A 4.1 as the new elevations. And I don't know if Commissioner Hudson has other pages she'd like to see or other concerns. Well, let's see, how are we doing this? We're doing, I mean, normally do a presentation, questions.
If you'd like, I could do
Staff,
a,
Since it's on consent calendar, I think that's why
Okay.
there's not really a
Okay,
presentation. to
all
be
right,
done.
well, okay, let's just cut to the chase. My main concerns are with the elevations, and I find they're really kind of blank, and the whole thing is kind of big and boxy, especially the top elevation, the middle elevation, and the back looks really boxy, especially what I would call the south elevation. I think the elevations are mislabeled also, because the front of the house to me would be east and it's labeled south. And what I would see as the south elevation is west facing. So, I mean, my biggest concern is just how kind of blank the whole thing is in a way. And I'm just kind of disappointed there's not a little more relief or a little better articulation of the facades. You know, and I find the garage, it seems like in the front, the garage is too tall, the room above it could be lower. I think this would have benefited from a better rendering to show us, and maybe like a massing model type thing to kind of show us what's going on. But, you know, in a sense, that's my biggest concern, and I don't know if other commissioners share those concerns. So I'll leave it at that and let Commissioner Hudson raise whatever concerns she has.
I did a site visit today just to check it out and see what it looks like. And I think some of the things that the neighbor said were what I was concerned about, and that is we have very small lots, and building vertically, the neighbors are going to lose privacy and light. And I'm not sure how we can make both people happy. But there was a letter from one of the people who did bring that up as a concern, and it may even speak to what Commissioner McLeod has been saying, that it's just maybe not the right design for that space. That's one thing to mention. The other thing I wanted to ask is, I noticed there's a boilerplate for most of these applications, and I don't understand, but perhaps someone can explain why a soil investigation is required for new construction.
So that might be a staff question.
that's a question for me, and that's a question I get all the time.
Okay.
It's a requirement of the California Building Code. Some cities waive the requirement. Albany soils are not particularly good for their expansive soils, so they can create issues for poorly designed foundations. And we also live in a high seismic risk area, so we make a judgment call on projects about whether or not a soil investigation is appropriate for an addition. In most cases, if it's a two-story addition, we do require them. If it's a small addition and it's just a portion of the existing, small portion of the overall residence, we generally don't. But we do give it some thought on a case-by-case basis. And that's because the soil that supports the house is, in effect, part of the foundation of the house. And a problem with the foundation is a very expensive problem to fix. And we have had issues with new construction when you know, from experience, we've learned that these soils reports can add some value and it would prevent issues coming up.
Thank you.
Okay, does any other commissioner want to comment on this item?
Sure, I'm happy to chime in. I was generally in support of the project as proposed. I mean, I think in terms of the overall massing, we routinely approve second-story additions adjacent to one-story homes, and there's still an appropriate side setback here that separates it. So I don't see an issue with any loss of access to light I think that's something that's very difficult to quantify, and it's within our adopted height limits. So I have no issue around that, nor privacy. I think, at the end of the day, we live in a relatively dense urban environment, and people are going to have different tolerances for privacy. So I have no concerns about that. I don't disagree that the design could have been better of maybe, stacking the vertical addition over the original house instead of pulling the garage forward and doing a two-story addition there. But I also don't think it's in conflict with our residential guidelines or design guidelines. This is a double-wide lot. This property, in my opinion, this property could contain a, significantly even larger addition and still be fully code compliant. So I don't think, for me, I'm not at the place where I would request any additional revisions. I mean, I think the front facade is appropriately detailed with windows and articulation, and I'm less concerned about non-publicly facing facades and the fenestration pattern. So sort of my thoughts. I'd be supportive of moving this project today.
Commissioner Momin, did you have any comments?
Thank you. I'm also in support of this project. I personally
I'm sorry, can't hear you, or?
I think it's just this button here, maybe. There we go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm also in support of this project. I personally did not find anything lacking in the design. The front facade I thought is quite well composed. Also the new addition on the side with garage on the ground level and the bedroom on the upper level is quite set back. So it doesn't create kind of a really wide frontage. And as Commissioner Wadi mentioned, that it would not heavily affect the light access to the adjacent building house. Also, the new addition has mostly bathrooms, so in terms of privacy, that should not have a major issue. And I thought even if some of the walls are blank, they might be covered by the adjacent houses. And also, like looking at this style, we see a lot of Mission Revival houses with stucco, rough stucco finish, which are kind of like considerably blank with smaller, openings. That is a kind of style of, architectural style. So in terms of plan also, and I thought, it's quite efficient. Yeah, so, I really don't find anything in this design that I would not support.
Okay, thank you. So I'm glad you pulled this because I think I would have let it go on consent calendar, but as long as you pulled it, the one item stuck out at me, which is that I would prefer that the front roof lines match in the new design. Rather, I think the new roof lines match the further back roof line of the existing house, but I prefer that all the frontmost roof lines be of the same design, of the original design. I asked an architect colleague of mine, and he agreed. He also said, odd that they did not choose to build the two-story addition on top of the existing house, but instead decided to have it half and half. I just mentioned that in case that's relevant to this body. I'm not sure that that's anything that I care that much about, but my colleague did make that comment. So if a majority of my colleagues agree that the roof line should match, that's the only change that I would put forward. Otherwise, I think I'm prepared to vote. Either way, I'm prepared to vote yes on this today. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about privacy and light. I mean, they are within their setbacks and perfectly reasonable to build out the volume they've done. I'm just kind of disappointed with it architecturally, I think, overall. I just would like to see something better, but, as far as sending it back, I don't think that's necessarily appropriate. I mean, I did walk by on my way over here, and the one sheer face or facade on the south is going to be pretty big and very blank. But as other commissioners have noted, I mean, as far as privacy is concerned, those windows are going to be high up, they're bathrooms or high bedroom window that won't be looking down at the neighbor's property. And I don't see privacy concerns with the side garage door or that window either. People won't be using it that much. And I agree about light. This house, this addition will not be shading the property to the south. It just doesn't happen with the sun path in the sky. So, and the one letter said mold was an issue for the neighbor, but this house will, in addition, will not cause mold. Mold is not caused by a neighboring house. It's caused by bad wall conditions, the way it's built in the existing house. It has mold. It's got nothing to do with the neighbor's house. So, I mean, I would just, I don't know, I'm very ambivalent about this one. I mean, normally I kind of let things slide, but I just don't like the facade and the side especially, and the back facade bothers me. Just kind of how blank and boxy they are.
Any comment about my roofline comment?
I'm not quite sure which, you're talking about the entryway versus the living room?
I'm
Or-
talking about this, this design. In the original is carried over here,
Oh,
but not in the new
yeah.
construction.
You know, I think that's okay in a way. The new awning over the porch is its own thing, and then,
Okay.
um,
Well, you can always vote no on the project.
okay, well. Is there any, I mean, public comment or comment from the,
Oh, thank you for that, for reminding me about that, yes. Any members of the public wish to comment on this item?
So if anyone would like to comment, I do see that the property owner is in the audience, doesn't have to comment if they don't wish to, but at the moment, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
The property owners in the physical audience?
No, is in the
Virtual audience?
attendee in the virtual audience.
Okay. Okay. No one online and no one in the room wishes to comment on this item. We'll bring it back to the commission for final deliberations, if any, or a vote.
anything else?
I'm happy to move approval as proposed of item 4-3, design review for second story at 926 Cornell.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And which way did I start last time? Well, I can't remember, but I'll start here. Commissioner Hudson?
Yes.
Commissioner McLeod?
I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Commissioner Mumman?
Yes.
Commissioner Wadi?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So this moves forward 4-1. All right, and now we have finished with the
Story polls.
consent calendar. Oh, thank you. And since story polls are required, although I don't know if we're still in that, we are still having storms, so have story polls been installed for this?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So story polls must remain up during the appeal period, which is 15 days. All right. And that does it for all the items in the consent calendar, as I mentioned. Next is announcements and communications. Anything from staff today?
A couple of quick things for you. First of all, one of the questions I'm getting a lot these days is if we have heard anything about the state's review of our housing element. And the answer is so far we have not. When it was submitted after city council action, I was told that to expect it to be at least 3 weeks, and I think this is the third week. So it's hard to predict. Some cities hear pretty quickly, other cities, it can be, by statute, they have up to 60 days to respond. So it's anyone's guess. I think it just depends on how busy the particular staff person is that's reviewing our housing element. When we hear, we will let everybody know, both by email and announcements at the forthcoming commission meeting.
I'll note that I heard from a reliable source that the reviewer, our reviewer, has 2 or 3 applications ahead of them. So,
A couple of other things I mentioned just this Monday night, the City Council reviewed the local hazard mitigation plan that the Commission looked at recently, and they did approve us sending that to the state to begin the state's review with the Office of Emergency Services. And then lastly, as far as I could do it now, we're at the end of the meeting. In terms of upcoming meetings at the moment, we have definitely 2 applications, maybe a third, and then we'll be have a follow-up on the parking discussion that you had recently. So with parking and 2 or 3 applications, that's probably 1 meeting. So I'm considering recommending to you consolidate, have just 1 meeting in April. If there are any schedule constraints or considerations for any of the 5 of you, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll just kind of see how it shakes out with the applicants and our consultant.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Anything else from staff or commissioners? Announcements?
I wouldn't, if you're looking for dates, I would suggest keeping the last hearing of April out of personal preference, but,
What is the date?
well, our hearings would be what, the 12th and the 26th?
That's right.
So I may not be available on the 12th.
Okay. Great.
All right. Okay, well, moving on then. Next item is public comments. This is for any member of the public, either here or online, to speak about an item that's not on the agenda. Is there anyone here to speak on an item not on the agenda, or anyone online raising their hands at this time?
We do have a person online raising their hand.
Okay.
Elaine, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing you. Please go ahead. I'm not getting the ability to unmute
Unmute.
them. Can,
I'm not on.
Okay, I see the unmute now.
Oh, there we go.
Hello. Hi,
Hi.
can everyone hear me now? Hello?
Go ahead, please.
Hi, okay. Thank you so much, commissioners and staff. I'm new to the process as a homeowner that's on the consent calendar, 520 Pomona. I just want to seek clarification that it means that project is approved.
That is 520 Pomona. We haven't heard yet. That's item 7.2. So we're about to move on to item 7.1 and then 7.2.
Oh, okay. Apologies.
No worries. I'm glad you asked. Okay, well then we'll wait. You can comment when that item comes up. And are there any other hands raised?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised remotely.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so now we'll move on to 7, more of the meat of the meeting. And first item is 7.1, the planning application 22-070, design review and parking exception approval for addition and remodel at 1000 Ventura.
Okay, I have a brief staff report. This is an existing 2-bedroom, 1-bath residence, a little, almost 1,200 square feet on a 3,181 square foot lot. The request is for design review and a front yard parking exception for a lower level or basement level and main level addition. This is a property that, regarding the parking exception, this is for they're beyond the half-mile radius that state law has recently exempted our ability to require any parking exceptions. They're a little bit beyond. I will note that when we bring something to council, if a proposal comes to council to eliminate that requirement, we would ask the council to consider some credit or something for the fee that they've paid, so that we're treating everybody equally in the city. With respect to the project itself, the proposal is for a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath residence, leading to almost 1,800 square foot home, maxing out the floor area ratio. The height would be approximately 26 feet. This is the site plan. Presently, the area that I'm circling there is a garage area that would be converted into a bedroom, and then the parking space, the front yard parking space, would be just squeezed right in underneath the what was the in an area that was the driveway facing what was the garage. This is a little bit of a unique project that we don't see very often. It's code compliant, but it does have unusually large floor-to-ceiling heights. And because of the layout or the design of the existing home, it doesn't really, they're kind of building down rather than building up, but I did think that was worth noting for the commission. And we have not received any correspondence from the public on this particular one. So we're recommending approval, subject to the conditions, standard findings and conditions of approval. We've also drafted special conditions that would address building materials, making sure that building materials are labeled, and a landscape plan is provided. We did receive, after the staff report was prepared, some supplemental materials. So the recommendation is prior to the plans that were submitted earlier today, or yesterday. And that completes my staff report. I believe we do have the applicant's architect in the audience, a virtual audience, and if the commission wanted to provide her an opportunity to address the commission or answer your questions, I'm sure they'd be happy to.
Great. Questions from commissioners? I'll have one. I just have one. In the staff report, it does say the project will not require significant grading or excavation, although it seems like some excavation will be necessary, but you don't think it'll be significant?
That's a point of discussion that we've been having. It's probably more than normal. The architect has been working with a civil engineer to try to minimize the required grading on, I'm forgetting now which side of it is, the property on one of the side yards, and trying to minimize that impact on the site. So it might be better to have her try to explain that to you than me.
Okay, great. Then can we?
I guess that would be a similar question I would have is, are they going to remove the whole lower floor and excavate and redo the whole bottom floor?
Can we bring the? I'm sorry. Did you say it was the owner or the applicant? I mean, the applicant or the architect?
Kayleen, I'm going to allow you to talk. Yeah, Kayleen, please feel free to go ahead. We're not hearing you, Kayleen.
Well, maybe they've stepped away.
There's
momentarily.
two Kayleens, so I'm going to allow both Kayleens to talk.
In Zoom, we can multiply sometimes.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, commissioners. To answer your question, we did, I don't know if I can share, can I share my screen? But we did provide a civil plan to Jeff recently, a preliminary grading plan showing that the basement and the sunken patio will be excavated, but the grading along the sort of like north and south side yards will pretty much be the same because we're not really excavating near the property line anymore.
Commissioner McLeod, did that answer your question, or do you have?
Well, I guess there's an existing basement, so that will be completely removed and completely redone with all new construction?
Yes, that's right. We are, the existing basement head height is currently around 6 feet, and we are going to be excavating down, about 3 to 4 feet to create that basement level.
Okay.
I could, excuse me, Kayleen, I can promote you as a panelist so you can share if you would like.
Okay.
hang on 1 second. This will just take a couple of seconds.
Okay. Join. Okay, shares. I'm about to share the screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
It hasn't popped up yet. It said you've started. There it goes. Now we see it. Yes.
Okay, okay. So I guess to show you the sort of preliminary grading plan that we are still working out the kinks, but you can see here that the grading is sort of away from the property lines. This is going to be a sunken patio at the basement level, and then this will be sort of the basement area. And you can see that on our basement level plan, and maybe a 3D is actually a little bit more clear. This is you can see in this AXO that this is the existing sort of basement height, and we are excavating a little lower just to get 2 more bedrooms at that basement level.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So part of the basement, the part closest to the street will still remain, the little
Yes.
shorter height section.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's right. We, the existing home has a basement already, and just sort of at the back portion of the house. The front portion is a garage that is sort of like a non-complying head height garage that the owners don't use at this time, and so we are turning this into sort of like an unified sort of entry level with the primary here and a small little office here and the main living area back here, which you'll see in this subsequent plan. This is a site plan.
I guess I have one other question. With all your pumps and sewage ejector, do you have a backup power plan, sort of battery backup, or what's your?
I think we will, just because it is kind of like a naturally downslope lot. And we are working with Lee and Braze right now, the civil engineers, to kind of like work on how to get, you know, stormwater and drainage away from the home and then back to the storm mains.
So the plan is to pump all the water up to the street, is that it?
Right now,
I'm seeing a lot of lines along the property line going up. You'll have to excavate
Yes.
for those. And
So the storm sump pump for drainage is here. To
right.
be honest, we haven't fully worked out all of these items yet.
Well,
but,
those pumps
we
show,
will.
pipes going along the property line up to the front and then out to the curb. So I guess it's everything going up to the street, yeah. Okay. I mean, that's going to take some excavation to get the pipes underground and out of sight. I guess my biggest concern would be a power failure, as could happen any day, like we've been having, and what happens to
Right.
your pumps and sewage ejector, and so maybe I guess I could say this for later, but my recommendation would be like get an electric battery backup power source.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, why don't you stick to questions for now, and
Okay.
we can have comment later, if that's all right with you. Okay. Any other, while we're on you, Commissioner McLeod, any other questions?
Not right now, no.
Questions, Commissioner Hudson, Commissioner Moman? No. Commissioner Wadi, and none for me either. So this is then the moment for any member of the public to comment on this item. Are you here? No. Okay. Any member of the public in the virtual room?
I'm not seeing any hands raised. If anyone would like to address the commission, please use the raise your hand function in Zoom. I'm At the moment, I'm not.
Jeff, I believe the owners wanted to say a few words too, just to kind of say a hello and quick intro.
Okay, thank you for that. There we go. Please go ahead. There we go.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes.
Thank you for considering our plans. My name is Sadiqa Hara, and my husband is here as well.
Hi, I'm Simon.
We really are looking forward to hopefully being able to break ground on our plans. This is a family home, and
Yeah.
yeah.
It was a family home. It was my grandparents' place, and it worked well for two. But we have two growing boys, and so it's sort of it's becoming a little bit tight. So we're hoping to be able to work on this project and build out some space so we can all reside here. Both Sadiq and I grew up in Albany, and we were lucky enough to be able to return, and we're hoping to be able to
Raise our children here.
continue
and
raising our children here in the space that really suits all of us. So,
So we
thank you.
appreciate your consideration.
Okay, thank you for coming, for being here. So then we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Would someone like to start? Commissioner Wadi?
Sure, I'm happy to start. And first I'll just say, full disclosure, I haven't spoken to them, but I did go to high school with both Simon and Sadiqa, so hello. But that does not impact my opining this evening. Overall, I actually thought this was a really handsomely designed project. I think it's a nice way to adaptively reuse a building for a next generation. The street impact is no greater in terms of height and massing as the existing building. And I actually think the proportions in the architecture are vastly improved over the existing. And again, I think the reuse of a garage space that's underutilized is a great way to be efficient with the overall building volume that's being proposed. So for all of those reasons, I'm in support of the project and don't have any additional comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone, Commissioner Hudson? No comments? Okay. Commissioner Momin?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Wadi's comments. It's I think a great way of adaptive reuse of an old house. Only one comment I have is like the existing house has kind of very, I would say well articulated windows. The new windows are kind of very, plain in comparison. Some kind of, instead of having just plain, fixed windows, some kind of casements or some divisions or something could, I think, complement better with the existing style of the design, architecture. That's all. Otherwise, I support this project as designed.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Momin. More discussion, Commissioner McLeod?
I generally like the project. I support what they're doing, converting the garage. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Really no restrictions on it anymore. The front parking space will be a little tight if you have a larger vehicle, but that's going to be everyone's kind of choice going forward. The basement is fine. It's a great way to get more space. I would note that it is very risky in terms of water intrusion. Plus the roof deck on top, you're going to get the double whammy. When I was in architecture school, I once had a project that had a whole bunch of roof decks on it, and one of the professors at a critique looked at it and said, "You are going to be plagued by roof decks for the rest of your professional life." And I think that also applies to basements that are below grade. So, don't skimp on the engineering and the waterproofing. Absolutely go as far as they will take you with the civil engineers. And, not removing the further walls to the street makes it harder to waterproof that edge. So that's something to consider. When you're doing tall spaces, I generally like to put windows higher, so I don't know if that's something that I would do. The windows that are very low in a tall space, the upper space tends to be kind of dead, so I would recommend some higher windows or a skylight above there to animate the tall space. And higher windows, especially in the south, will bring light further in to your space. So having said that, I'm happy to support it. I mean, I like the plan, and I like the big kitchen with the big doors looking out to the back. I think that's terrific. Going to be a terrific space, so I'm happy to support the project.
Thanks. I think I can agree with all my colleagues' comments. I think that's a good one that I had noted about the windows, making the windows taller or having more windows, maybe some clear story windows, I think could definitely improve the project in the interior living. And it's a good point also about the drainage, but I'll note that I've had, I'm not an expert, I'm not even a professional in this area, but I've had great success with passive solutions for drainage, such as just putting French drains along the side of the house to try to keep the water to this, away from the house in a passive way. So I think you ought to, whoever you're consulting for that, you might want to ask them about that. Otherwise, yeah, I'm prepared to support this project. Any further comments? No? Would someone like to make a motion then?
Sure, I'm happy to make a motion to approve item 7-1, planning application 22-070, design review and parking exception for 1000 Ventura.
A second.
Okay.
May I clarify that the special conditions that we drafted would not apply? Would that be correct?
Oh.
I'm not hearing the need for those special conditions.
That's, I think.
Remind us what they were. They were.
Building material schedule and the landscaping plan?
I would agree with keeping the landscaping plan condition
Okay.
and building materials. You were looking more for a palette or?
Yeah. But we,
Didn't the plan cite aluminum clad or wood windows and stucco, or did I?
I'm assuming it was stucco.
Am I still?
yeah, go ahead,
It's
Kaylee.
Yes.
where we proposed stucco with the standing seam roof at the sort of front porch, shingles at the back to match sort of what's there for the roof, and thermally broken aluminum windows. Yeah.
So I think it's fine. I'll amend my motion to include it with the landscape plan, but no need for additional material detailing. I think those are specified sufficiently on the plans.
And do you continue your second with the change? Okay. But I'm looking in the staff report, and I see that the staff recommends that we approve, subject to the attached findings and conditions of approval. Where are the special conditions?
They're in attachment 3 on page 9 of the staff report. They're the first part of the conditions of approval.
Page 9. Okay, one moment.
Maybe what we can clarify is just as drafted. So all of the conditions as drafted, but just an indication to staff that the materials that are specified are approvable. So in the same way that you would review any final details, but I don't think there's a need to change the materials that are specified. So I think just that keeps it simple. It's as drafted.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think these are all staff level conditions. So, okay, all right. So then, you're moving as written then? Or okay.
Yep.
And still seconded. Okay. All right. Clarified that. So we have a motion and a second, and I'll poll from this side. Commissioner Waddy?
Aye.
Commissioner Moman?
Yes.
Commissioner McLeod?
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that project is approved, and There's no such thing as underground story poles, so we don't have to say anything about that, but there is the 15-day appeal period. Okay, well, let's move on to item 7.1. Make sure I have it in front of me. There it is. 7.2. Thank you. 7.2. The Planning Commission Planning Application 23-009, design review for first floor addition and major remodel at 520 Pomona. And we have staff report. And forgive me, I'm just going to run out for 1 second and grab my water.
Okay. This is a design review application for 520 Pomona Avenue. It is an existing 3,300 square foot lot with a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,800 square foot, 1,857 square foot home. It's a ground floor and second floor addition to create a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom home, 2,092 square feet. The height would be approximately 23 feet and 8 inches, and it would be the maximum floor area ratio of 55%. It also includes an ADU as part of the project. Keep in mind that the commission is limited by state law to not be reviewing the ADU. That will be something we will do separately as staff, but we do like to present the project to you so you can see everything in context. And as demonstrated on the screen, the ADU is in the back corner of the property. We did get several pieces of correspondence on this application. A resident to the north expressed some concerns about roof height and architectural compatibility, and a resident to the east, across the street, expressed concerns about height impacts on their view and that the character of the facade was incompatible with neighboring properties. The commission received all those emails directly when they came in. So we are recommending approval of the project. Again, we have some special conditions that subject to commission review, subject to commission discussion this evening that you may want to consider requiring additional review of the architectural relief of the project to reduce the massing and or the building, and to consider variation of the building materials to ensure compatibility with surrounding neighborhood. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so I want to make sure that I note the special conditions. Okay, those are on page 8, it looks like, of the staff report. For our consideration, applicant shall consider architectural relief in design to reduce overall massing of the proposed project, subject to staff approval. And B, applicant shall consider further variation of building materials and colors to further warmth, character, and compatibility with surrounding neighborhood context and residential design guidelines, subject to staff approval. Are there questions from the commission?
It's the same architect that has the,
Unfortunately, the same architect. We thought we were being really efficient by getting 2 of his projects in at one meeting, but unfortunately, circumstances came up.
None? Nothing?
Just have a comment.
Okay.
Maybe a quick question. I don't know if staff could maybe answer. In terms of the, I believe looking at the material schedule that's on here, the exterior cladding is cement board siding, sort of board and batten siding. I'm just trying to double check the sort of vertical articulation that we're seeing there is just sort of the joint seam of the boards. It's not like a joint. Is that do you think that's the intent?
I assume that.
So more of like a almost tongue and groove style of like siding versus panels, like a jointing of a panel. You know, I'm trying to figure out which it is. Yeah.
Like a T111 kind of treatment where there's a little band of.
Or like, yeah, just like the metal jointing for like a GFRC, and I'm just trying to figure out whether we're going to see a seam, like a seam where you can be seeing through it, or whether this is sort of just a siding, you know, a more traditional where you'd see like wood siding against wood siding type of an application here.
I looked at the larger scale details, and unfortunately, they show stucco. I looked for the.
Right,
I
it's a
looked for
stucco
that
detail. Yeah.
specifically, and was disappointed not to see it. So, where is that?
That would imply the bands are made of stucco?
No, well, I had the same question. It could, board and batten would be the batten over the seam.
Yeah.
Batten and board would be the little, you know, the little small
reverse,
piece
yeah.
behind the bigger piece.
And they just say B and B, so I was like a little unclear on that. And to your point, I think it's the detail 1 on sheet. My cursor won't move to the side. The
You know.
detail sheet, and yeah, I see the stucco.
Yeah, if you look at typical wall section number 6, it says stucco, and then I looked at the window detail, because that's very critical with that kind of siding, is the detailing of the board and batten with the windows, and that also shows stucco, so that's something that may, if the architect were here, he could explain it, but unfortunately can't, so.
Okay.
I mean, there's another way to do it, which is you just leave a void behind the panels and you have a rain screen. So there are like different ways to do it, but.
The applicant and/or owner doesn't happen to be present, do they?
Yes, the applicant addressed you earlier this evening.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's, forget the name, Aileen or something?
Oh, hi, everyone. That's right. It's Aileen. Thanks so much. Unfortunately, I'm not as well versed in building material, but I believe similar example we've seen is on 1152 Portland Avenue. Similar, I think half of the building has vertical siding. I believe that is what we're going for.
I'm sorry, if you could say the address again, I could pull it up on Google Earth.
Oh, yeah,
for the commission.
sure. It's 1152 Portland Avenue.
I think I know which one, yeah. That relatively new, significant alteration, sort of a white and black detail.
Correct. Yeah, I believe we're not doing the horizontal siding. We're doing the upper half vertical throughout. Color is TBD.
Were you the same architects on that project on Portland, or is that just a reference example?
It is the same architect.
Okay.
Yeah, so we thought there was precedence and familiarity.
Hard to see. There we go.
Zoom in fairly well, yeah.
Is this, is it actually, oh, maybe this is what they're talking about.
So the batten is actually outside the pan.
It does look like batten, though.
Yeah, they're set over the seams,
Yeah.
it looks like, yeah.
Okay, well.
I think that helps answer the question at least. Thank you.
So on the screen,
Thank
I
you. I
have,
tried.
for
My
members of the
apologies.
public who are online, this is the example given in Portland, so
A
people,
little bit hard to see the
It's kinda
detail in
washed
the
out,
white.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's better up there.
yeah.
You can see the,
At the bottom of the second story, you can see that the battens, because there's a shadow underneath the battens, a tiny bit of a shadow.
I'll stop there, sure.
Okay. Other questions?
None, no, not for me.
Okay. If no other questions, we'll go to any public comment. Any members of the public here to speak on this item? No? Any members of the public raising their virtual hand? Now would be the time if you wish to comment on this item.
I'm not seeing any other members of the public raising their hand. I believe at least one of the members of the public who corresponded with the commission indicated they weren't going to be able to attend tonight.
Correct, yeah. All right, well, we'll bring it back for commission discussion. Would anyone like to start? Commissioner Hudson?
I was visiting the site and looking at the neighboring properties and comparing the facade, the design facade. And then I went and looked at this policy LU 2.3, compatibility of residential alterations with existing homes and so on. And it just, to me, it doesn't seem to fit. But I'm not an architect, but I've seen the new designs be a little more integrated into the neighborhood, and this one doesn't seem to be that. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Who else? Commissioner Moman.
Yeah, I echo that opinion. The plan looks quite efficient to me as compared to the old house, but the architectural style is completely, not a great improvement. You are, replacing such a beautifully designed house with a nice facades on all sides, nice bay window, nice, straight entrance stair, and what is being, what replaces that, I think it's kind of a very, a simple box with just a pitch roof on top of it. It doesn't have any architectural language other than the cement board siding. It doesn't have any articulation. It doesn't have a well-defined entry that can make a statement. It doesn't have any plane changes, any play of masses or something. It is kind of very boxy, I think. So I'm not very supportive of this project.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wadi?
Sure, I have a few comments. I actually have very similar comments to Commissioner Moman. And again, I think, hearing the reference of the project on Portland is helpful to start sort of thinking about where their vision is trying to go. And I think that project, passed by it frequently, is quite well executed, and I think it's done quite well. But I think there are some details on that project that aren't in this that can be those sort of like elements that would really make this more compatible. For example, a porch or some sort of defined residential entry. That's a really, critical part in the design guidelines to include sort of a prominent porch and residential entry. And I feel like this, the proposed project here falls a little bit short in doing that. And so I'm not opposed to the overall massing of the project. I actually think the massing and the roof form could be perfectly appropriate. But I think there's a little bit of that articulation and residential entrance in particular that could be improved upon through a revision. So again, overall massing, no issues. But I think some detailing at the front facade, again, because the existing building also, I agree, I always feel like you need to at least be equal, if not better, to what was there. And I think in this case, it's taking a bit of a step backwards, but I think there are a lot of elements here where I can see where the vision is going, where they can maybe just make some adjustments, incorporate a stronger residential entrance, and probably get there. But I think it might be helpful to maybe continue this one and have the architect work on some of those elements and then come back when they're here also. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McLeod?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think this project would have really benefited from a much better rendering of these facades, and a model, some sort of model we could see. The sort of graphic approach of all the lines is kind of doing a disservice to the project, I think, because it really doesn't show you what it's really going to look like. When we look at that photograph or the photos of the other house that is the example on Portland, the battens kind of blend in and it looks like a much more even facade, but this is very graphic. It's a lot of lines. It just doesn't really show us what it's going to look like. And I kind of agree about the front door, front porch. I can't tell if this is trying to be modern, if it's trying to be traditional. It's got kind of a traditional, gable roof, and then this straight little minimal overhang for the front door. I mean, it's like a language that doesn't go together. I think it could have just benefited from less of a kind of a building permit-like presentation and more of an architectural presentation to the commission. So, it wouldn't, I think in a lot of ways, I look at the south facade, that's okay. The windows look kind of interesting. It is one long facade. Then I look at the rear, it's got the deck, it's got a funny wall that comes all the way out, and I would wonder why that big long wall is there. Maybe that's for privacy. I don't know. So it has elements that are promising. The north facade has an opening for the deck and a railing. So, it's not, I'm a little ambivalent about it. On the one hand, it's not bad, but I think a better presentation would have helped. So that's about, I think the floor plan seems fine. The old existing front facade was sort of an odd duck with a little triangle over the entry, and then the other more traditional bay window. The arch and the bay was sort of an odd combination. So in terms of massing, this almost seems lower and more compact than before. So I don't have a problem with the overall height of the building at all. So, it's relatively close in height. The outside walls are lower, the peak is higher, so I don't think that's got a big impact at all. So I'll leave it at that for the moment.
Just a clarification to something you said. Are you saying that the original design, the original front facade was a little strange to you?
Yes, yeah. I find the little triangle over the rounded arch a little incongruous with the bay window with its kind of parapet next to it. I don't see any elements there really worth saving with the tall, straight roof at the top, probably a parapet. But, I have no problem with the overall look of the new house, but I do agree it could be articulated better at the front and a better porch treatment and just a better rendering to show us the details of how the board and batten and the middle board go together would be helpful.
Okay. Some good comments from my fellow commissioners. I agree with Commissioner Moman that we are losing some architectural features, although perhaps a little funky. What we get is something very plain in exchange for that. And I agree, if we look at that 1152 Portland project, we see a lot better articulation of the front facade, as Commissioner Waddy was pointing out, and I would favor that as well. I would also favor better details, as was pointed out, to the materials and better modeling in the plans. It was suggested that perhaps we could continue this project. I would be in favor of that. And I'll finally note that as many of our applications as many of our applications do, this one comes in at 55% FAR, which means we should be looking for exceptional design. And I hear a consensus that we don't have an exceptional design here yet, at least. So, did anyone want to make a motion to continue this and ask the architect to come back with some changes?
Sure, I'm happy to make a motion, but maybe a question to staff. Would it be best to continue this to date certain, so we don't need to renotice it?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what our next meeting would be, so, let's just do it, and we'll resend a public notice out to the neighborhood.
Okay.
And in that, we can point out that perhaps there's revised plans or something like that, so.
Perfect. Then I'll go ahead and make a motion to continue item 7-2 indefinitely. And this is the design review for, design review at 520 Pomona.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And Commissioner Wadi,
Aye.
Commissioner Moman,
Yes.
Commissioner McLeod,
Aye.
Commissioner Hudson.
Aye.
And I vote yes as well. And the architect can reference the recording of this meeting for our input. Great. And that was the last item on our agenda, I believe. And there's no new business. Item 8. Our next meeting is either April 12th or April 26th.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I'll let the commission know as soon as we can double check with our applicants and our consultant to make sure that one or the other works, and I'll lean towards the 26th that we can accommodate Commissioner Wadi's schedule.
And we do have one member of the public present in the audience. Did you? Okay, nothing. Okay, great. Well, thank you for being here. Thanks for your attendance. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice and quick.
Okay, thank you.